speaking as someone who comes from a Big Four accountant, I think it's not so much of an issue of tax planning as education of what the options are available. Again, I'll come back to the point that people don't utilise or realise the allowances they have and use them in the order that we're supposed to. I mean, if you go right back to the sort of financial planning exams that you can take of the CII or whoever, you know, you're supposed to use your national savings first, then your ISA, and then your pension, and there's a certain logic to it. But, you know, I've yet to come across someone that's ever done that in that order. Even with the provision of financial education and financial...
I mean, the key thing, I think, on the financial education side is that you've got to make it easy for people to kind of execute on what you've educated them about. So if they understand it and go, yeah, really like that, that's fantastic, you've just got to make it really, really easy for them to be able to go. Yeah. And I think, you know, the classic example I see on share schemes and ISAs particularly is where people have shares that, you know, they might have held for numbers of years, built up over time. They say, oh yeah, money's a bit tight, you know, I won't be taking an ISA this year. And you're going, but surely you should just transfer the shares, you know, particularly right now where share prices have actually been increasing, you know, generally over the last 18 months or so. You know, you should be utilising your annual tax allowance through your ISA and putting the shares in. You can actually put it into your pension at some point as well if you want to get some more tax relief on it. And when you say, you know, and if you just do simple numbers with people saying this is what it means, they think there's some, you know, there's some trick somewhere, you know, and it can't be good, surely, you know. It's, you know, and I think so. You know, the thing, and this is, you know, with the platforms that, well, the Immersors have got, you've got a lot of other providers have got now. That's where, you know, having very simple interfaces where people, you know, understand the reason why, and then all they have to do is hopefully press a few buttons and it happens. That is absolutely critical. So it's the education piece. I agree, but then it's
you've got
how
the
easy
ability to execute.
Because they can't do it in the high street. That's the thing. I mean, we get loads of, you know, they go, oh yeah, I want to see someone in the bank, you know, in the high street, and yeah, they just told me to bring a cheque for my, you know, and you go, well, and, you know, and of course all the tax, you know, benefits go out the window. So I
think, in terms of to your point on the functionality that is already there, and going back to my previous point, I've seen some fantastic employee benefit packages offered by companies. It just never ceases to amaze me the numbers or lack of numbers of employees who engage with it, even when it's all there, it's all singing, all dancing, in your face, ready to take it. People still don't choose, and that
part of the problem is the employer. It's the employer not promoting the benefit well enough. But to Jonathan's point, it's not for the employee. Once they've made their plan, and it's fine to offer them all of the education tools, all of the learning modules, all of the online facilities. But if you can't help them then execute that plan, which we've been missing up until recently, and then be able to monitor that plan, then you're missing the fundamentals.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're missing a trick, is the member engagement. Is you might be able to get them in or join the pension scheme or do whatever, or do a simple part of what they've got, but actually how many, I mean, we all know around this table involved in anything to do with DC pensions, how many members actually ever go and subsequently revisit either their investment choice or the level of contribution which they're paying or whatever. They don't. They just go into a default, they stay in a default. Very, very small percentages of people actually engage with not just their pension, all of their employee benefits.
Even those who do engage are desperate for advice and they don't get it. And they come along and they say things to me as a trustee, well, I know you're not allowed to give advice, but you know more about it than I do, so what would you do? I said, well, my situation isn't exactly the same as yours, and how do I know that? Because I don't know what your situation is. But they want advice. And they're between a rock and a hard place, because if they go to an IFA, if they've got a small fund, the IFA is probably not interested in talking to them. Or he's going to set such a massive fee that they just can't see how they can win. And if they've got a large fund, well, they may well have an advisor that they can then tap into, but the majority haven't. And there's something fundamentally wrong here in terms of, in order to go through the system, you need advice, but you can't afford advice or you don't want to take advice. And so you don't buy the product. Now, if you could only book a foreign holiday by going through an advisor and paying a commission or a fee, those same people would not book holidays, because they'd see the value of the product they were buying and they'd say, well, I'm not sure about this, if I've got to sort of pay 4% here, or I've got to pay the guy £250 an hour there. And it's this whole advice thing which is It's a chain which prevents. It's a great hurdle that people cannot get over.
I think that's where making a distinction between educational programs and regulated advice is really important, though, because for most employees, if they have a good education program, it will point them in the right direction so they can make whatever decisions they need to make. There's only ever really a limited number of people that really truly need to go and get regulated advice, and that's normally because of things like they're about to retire and they probably should take advice. Some number of pension schemes,
many don't.
Many don't. No, you're absolutely right. So I think because, to your point, advisors are not going to go and advise 100% of people because people won't pay the fees anyway, and so therefore it commercially won't be viable. So I think it's really important to get this distinction between good educational advice in the workplace around the whole range of financial benefits and salary sacrifice benefits, how they can link in, and all those sorts of things, as opposed to when actually it is clearly up to the individual, but they actually know as part of that education process at what points it might be appropriate to take advice.